All right, welcome back. And if you're just joining us, this is the press coming to you live from the Abuja studios of KAFTAN Television. And now we're being joined by our very own Dr. Mefor, and together we shall be taking a look at the headlines I read out to you earlier. And this is also a reminder that our phone lines are now open for you to call and join the conversation. Good morning, Dr. Lo. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning.
It's good to be on the program with you again.
Yeah, always my pleasure.
And it's always a pleasure because I can't wait to hear your opinions and your thoughts on all of the issues that we have on our national dailies.
Okay.
So let's begin with the coups in Africa so far. The last time we were just talking about what's going on in Niger, and now we have it happening in Gabon. What are your thoughts on this? What has been going on through your mind?
Yeah, well, I think the return of the military, so to speak, is not coming to me as a surprise. I believe that democracy hasn't been allowed to serve Africa and Africans. So I wouldn't want to say that that democracy failed in Africa. I don't think that is the correct diagnosis of what has transpired around here. I believe that the African political elites have not allowed democracy to really work, to thrive, to take root. What they have done, as far as I am concerned, is to supplant democracy and put in its place what you may call a competitive dictatorship. You know, they pass their power around themselves. In other words, they find a way of, that is where you have the so-called election at all. They find a way of, passing power around themselves. If you check the Nigerian experience, it's basically the same. Before the APC could come in 2015, you know, they came in almost bulldozing their way. Before then, I recall that Obulafo, the national chairman of the PDP then, boasted that PDP would be in power for 60 years. He didn't give any reason. But you see, you can't continue to have a so-called democracy without elections, right? There must be election. And what we have in Africa at the moment, in most African countries, they are not elections. You see, there was a reverend father called Dun Scotus, as far back as 12th century, was talking about consent of the governed. It means that the people must give you their consent. You know, in other words, the people must have the right to choose who governs them, and by extension, how they would be governed. This has been denied in Africa. You know, taking it further, you look at the fact that what we are going through is essentially state capture. You know, state capture and an oligarchy. You know, oligarchy here is where a handful of people take over the governmental instruments and administer it for their own good, not even for the common good. This is where the tragedy is. That is why you have two things in place. You have what you call prebendalism. Prebendalism is a form of government where the people, the officials, see the state as their property and use it as such. That's what's going on in Africa. You know, and it doesn't stop there. You will see that the people are shunted, they are short-circuited, they are not allowed to be part of the process in any way. So what these African leaders do is to recycle themselves. That is not the only problem. The main problem is that they are holding power not for common good. In other words, they are not even deploying the state power for what you may call a greater good, you know, a delivery of greater happiness for a greater number of citizens, and of course, the security of their lives and property. These are the two reasons why you have government. Otherwise, there will be no need. In fact, John Locke went further to say that where a government is not able to deliver on happiness, welfare of the citizens, let us not even talk about development. Basic welfare.
Okay.
If you're not able to deliver on welfare, you are not able to secure lives and property, then you have lost legitimacy. And John Locke went further to say that the people reserve the right to change such government. Now, that is where election comes in. Election time is the time the people revalidate the mandate given a performing government.
Yes.
Or change it. But African leaders have not allowed the people to change them. That is why you have the Bongo family run Gabon for 56 years. Do you see the problem? Either 53 or 56 years. You go to a place like Cameroon, Biya has been there for 48 years. Do you understand? And you have this dynasty that is evolving in Africa now. A father transfers power to the son. Eyadema of Togo handed over to Fra. After being there for over 2 decades, he handed over to the son, and the son is there for over a decade. Now, look at what has happened in a place like Côte d'Ivoire. Ouattara, you remember how Ouattara came in? Ouattara removed the Gbagbo, right? Through a popular election. Gbagbo wanted to stay, but somehow the people rose. Now, the same Ouattara, after doing 2 terms allowed by the constitution, amended the constitution to allow him to go for a 3rd term. The same thing is what has happened in Congo. Congo, Laurent Kabila and the father and the son, Joseph Kabila, exchanged the batons. Do you understand that? So it's a dynasty evolving in Africa. In other words, it's not a democracy in Africa. It's more of a monarchy where people hijack the state power and appropriate everything thereof, make themselves monarchs. That's what they are. They're not
monarchs
leaders.
In democracy.
Yes, that is the danger. So where the people are not able to change government, what you now get is other ways, a kind of implosion in the system where the people who share what you call the coercive instrument of the state, which is the military, now intervene on behalf of the masses. I am not an advocate of military takeover as a solution to what is going on. But what are the options? That is the question.
Yes.
If they cannot allow people to vote them in or vote them out, what else can the people do? This is the question. So I think it was J.F. Kennedy, one of the most famous American presidents, who said that those who make peaceful change impossible make violent change inevitable. This is a fact. Now, another thinker, Alexander Pope, said that for form of government, let the fools contend for what is best governed, what is best administered is best. In other words, it's not really a form of government. It is delivery of happiness. It's delivery of dividends, development. Africa has not been able to benefit from democracy.
The leaders have not been delivering.
Because they have not delivered development. So now you have a civil rule, which they call democracy, that has not been able to put food on the table. What is the difference between an urban center and a rural dwelling? The difference is light, road, water, school, good health care.
Better development.
Do you understand that? Look around you. Even in Abuja, do you have pipe and water? When we were growing up, we saw pipe and water. Now we can see pipe and water. Are we really moving forward or backward? That is the problem. So there is a new rising in Africa, interrogating this claim to the so-called democracy. Recall that just less than 2 weeks ago, the Abuja School for Social and Political Thought, it presented its own report on the 2023 presidential election. And in that report, they titled it Election Without Democracy. Put differently, democracy without election. It's impossible. Because democracy is about choice. It's about people deciding who would govern them. So it's not a form of government. Democracy, I hear, is the best, Good, practice it and let us see how good it is. But you have not allowed democracy. You supplanted it with oligarchy. You supplanted it with fascism. You know the problem with fascism? Fascism happens in a democratic environment where the people have been supplanted. People will think, the world will think that you are in a democracy, but actually you are in a civilian dictatorship. That is what has happened to Africa. That is what has happened all across. So the coups you see, about 8 since 2020, is a response to the inability of the
African leaders
to really, to really develop Africa. Africa has not been developed for Africans. Africa has been there not for Africans, but for the Western powers, the colonial powers, places like Britain, places like France, Portugal and others that colonized Africa before. Take the case of Francophone, for example. It's very clear. Why are they revolting? Much of their natural and national resources are not deployed to themselves. The case of Niger is a case in point. They have a huge deposit of uranium, perhaps the largest in Africa. But, Niger is one of the poorest countries in Africa. So where has uranium that God put there for them, where has it gone to? It has gone to the Western powers. In other words, the Western powers have put in place or encouraged the subversion of the people's power in Africa because they are the ones benefiting of ultimately. That is what is going on. So they encourage dictatorship in Africa. They are active in this. Yeah. For example, they are saying return the man that was Bazou, right? That was removed from Niger. Yeah. We haven't done talking about that. We are now talking about return Ali Bongo. Ali Bongo, I saw his video clip where he said, make some noise. I'm telling
all my friends in the world.
My brother, we are making noise for you. We are making noise. What I'm doing here is noise making. Let's make noise. But they need to know that, look, this will go around. If they don't change their ways, they must deploy the resources of Africa back to Africa to develop Africans. Do you understand? If they don't do this, this trend will continue. And it is not the best for us. You know why? You can't predict what will come out of a military intervention. Because it is inherently a dictatorship. And if you are lucky to have a benevolent dictator, good luck to you. But what is the guarantee? The Nigerian experience has shown that we have had benevolent dictatorship in somebody like IBB, but we have also seen total autocracy, dictatorship in the person of General Muhammad Buhari. So we have had all. You can't predict what is going on, and ultimately on freedom, you are not able to really express yourself. Okay. In a dictatorial military administration, you can't predict things like press freedom,
all right,
citizen freedom, and so on and so forth.
I'm so sorry we lost that call.
Okay, I believe you will call back. So the point I'm making is, if you make Africa work for Africans, it doesn't matter the form of government. If it is dictatorship, we may not be sure how it will end, whether it is benevolent or otherwise. After all, IBB ran the best of benevolent dictatorship in Nigeria, but how did it end? He was the one that annulled the election of Chief M.K. Abiola. Do you understand that? So it is still that I and myself, a single person determining the life and future of everybody. I will subscribe to it.
All right, let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Sandra.
Good morning to you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hello, Mr. Wolford, sir.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. I really appreciate your contribution or your analysis this morning. Exactly, perfectly. This is what is going on in this world, not even in Nigeria or Africa alone. The so-called democracy, by principle, is so fantastic, but in practice, it's just nothing to write home about across the world, not only Africa. One point I want to drag here is the issue of this coup that is going on, most especially around the French colonized countries. I'm not actually in support of coup, but I'm so sorry to say I am happy because I'm a typical Africa. Reason being that the colonization has not stopped, and the exploitation kept on going, most especially the French colonized areas. So this is one of the reasons why the African leaders, the so-called ECOWAS, they really have to think twice before even acting, because I want to believe they should not forget that Russia is there. And let's say the truth where the truth is. The Western powers are just deceivers. They give you little to take more from you. That is the fact. Okay? But I want to ask a question. Maybe after this, you respond to that. Is there any country in this world ever in history that Russia has ever colonized? I've not read that. And if there's any country that has helped Africa across the world, number one should be Russia against these Western colonizers. So our leaders, just like you said, they really have to free themselves from the bondage of these Westerners. Because the so-called democracy that they are saying, if truly it is democracy, then they will not be exploiting Africa. It's part of democracy to be sincere, right? Okay, where is the sincerity there? They're coming down to the African leaders, just as you described them. That is how African leaders are. They are oligarchs. Their own oligarchs is unlike the Russians, because theirs, at least, they safeguard their own territory. And there is wealth over there. But here, every time they keep on publishing us. So it's a wake-up call now that the ECOWAS have to really think twice, because we are not in support of any military intervention in Niger. Not because outside or the northerners are shouting because of that. No. Because if there is any military intervention in Niger, believe me, remember what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. Muhammad Buhari even said that guns that were getting escaped from that place come to Nigeria and issue of Boko Haram. What if the Niger issue happens? Who told them that in 1 week it's going to end?
Okay,
so this is one of the reasons why there shouldn't be any. The best thing that the ECOWAS should do, if they are truly sincere, if they are truly sincere, is to reorganize themselves and tell themselves the truth, the bitter truth, that they have been cheating the African citizens for quite long, because they are responsible to their own master from the Westerners. So we are white. The Nigerian youth are white now. They have to be very, very careful.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mefor.
Thank you. You see, you collaborated in most of my postulations.
Yes.
If you want to halt the return of the military to the political arena, deliver development. That's just a simple solution. When they say democracy, the African Union, ECOWAS, all of them must give us their own operational definition of what democracy is. I have said that what we have seen in Africa is democracy without elections. And I believe that without an election to enable the people revalidate somebody's mandate or remove the person and put somebody else they want, there is no democracy. That's the truth. And it's all over the place, including Nigeria. Do you understand that? So if we are not practicing democracy, we have no right to castigate any other form of intervention. Because if democracy is the civilized, legitimate process of changing a government, then you must allow it to work.
Okay.
Do you get the point?
Yes.
If you don't allow it to work, we will not be able to even gauge how good it is. Because Nigerians have not ultimately been responsible for their leaders, generally. Otherwise, why are our elections so disputed? Nigerian electoral cycle produces the highest election litigation you can find anywhere in the world. The question is why? Because of the opaque manner the whole process is deployed. You even get to the point where INEC serves as an instrument of rigging an election for some preferred candidates. That is an enigma, is an aberration. As long as you allow such things to happen, the people are not responsible for whoever emerges as their leader. And as long as the people who have managed to emerge through this crooked process are not delivering development, welfare, and security, the people will continue to resent them.
All right.
That is what is going on. And resenting them means that they are asking for change in any legitimate manner that is
anyhow
possible.
it comes, as long as it's a change.
Anyhow it comes. Anyhow it comes. I am sure the military will never intervene in a place where a government is popular and the people are happy with the government, are really happy with the government.
And even if the military do, the people will not stand with him. Because you can see what happened in Niger and what is happening in Gabon.
Good.
After the people were rejoicing, people were celebrating.
People are celebrating. It's a shame to the leaders that have been so ignominiously removed. They should ask themselves, why are the people celebrating? And just one last thing here. You see, I've told you about the inability of African leaders to even relinquish power. Why are we celebrating somebody like Obasanjo and Jonathan? Because they relinquished power. Not because their regimes were so wonderful, but they were able to allow themselves to be changed or to hand over power to another person. It's not happening in Africa. This is a big issue. It is not happening in Africa. And until there is a program of succession. For example, African Union must insist on the constitutions, but each time the people raise a query regarding violent violations of their constitutions, especially when it comes to tenure change, being manipulated to bring in about what we call tenure elongation. The next thing you hear is that it is the internal affairs of such a country. Then why are you now getting worried? Why don't you see military intervention as an internal affair? Do you get what I'm saying? So you can't abhor military intervention occasioned by a manipulation of a constitutional order and not at the same time challenge manipulation of a constitutional order. What happened in Gabon against Ali Bongo is very simple. A sick man, somebody who as we speak, he suffered a stroke not long ago. So he is infirm, and yet he manipulated the constitution to give him a third term. If Ali Bongo, do you know he's returning by 94%? If the whole Gabonese are celebrating his ouster,
then how did he get the 94%
of the people that voted him? Do you see where we are?
Yes.
So I believe that this is a passing phase, and the phase is only necessary because every nation moves in two ways. Either of these two ways, you move either by evolution or you move by revolution. Evolution here means that the government in place is developing the people, securing the people and property, and is pursuing the greater good, of the greater happiness of a greater number of citizens. Do you get the point? That is evolution. If you can't do this and you sit tight, then it's revolution.
All right, let's take this call and we'll continue our conversation. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, please. I want to contribute. This is KAFTAN TV, right?
Yes, this is KAFTAN TV. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Chris Iyasara. Chris Iyasara is my name. I'm calling from Benin City. That man you are speaking with, Uche Mefor is his name, right? He's a lawyer.
No, his name is Dr. Law Mefor.
It's one of the last men standing in Nigeria. Speak the truth. It's one of the last men standing. There are just a few of them left that are not compromised with the system. We must tell each other the truth. And when we tell each other the truth, we can grow. we refuse to accept the truth as we tell each other as it is, and we allow those we are telling the truth to compromise the system, compromise police, compromise the army, compromise the electoral system, compromise the rest of them, then Nigeria should go down the drain, or will go down the drain. I will be cautious with my English.
All right, thank you so much. Okay.
We never go down the drain, or we will go down the drain if we refuse to listen to people like this, who tell us the truth to our face, who tell the truth to power, as it is, without wanting a state governor to give him commissioner or to nominate him as a minister.
All right, thank you so much.
Has been there for years. See, I'm speaking from Benin City at those days. I don't know him one-on-one. But there are so many of them like that in Nigeria who keep telling the truth of government. But what is the problem with our government? What is wrong? You travel out, you have intercourse, go all over the world and see good things going on. Why can't you implement it here?
All right, thank you so much for your contributions.
Why are we slaves to colonial powers?
All right.
Why are we slaves to our leaders?
Thank you for your contributions.
Don't worry.
Thank you, my brother. I'm Dr. Mefor. Uche is my brother anyway. So you say it's just the same issue here. The fact remains that nations develop through evolution or through revolution, and I've already defined it too. Right. If you don't want revolution, then develop your people. Simple. Okay,
now with what you just said, you also mentioned the role of the African Union in all of this.
Yes.
Now I'm talking about this because we know that as of yesterday and early this morning, Rwanda and Cameroon, not just Rwanda, hurriedly retired 1,029 senior officers in a surprise move. And the EU, I don't know if the AU is supposed to be saying something in this regard, but this actually means you are not ready to change your own actions, but you don't want to be hoisted out. You don't want a coup to happen because you know you are not doing things right.
Do you see that? But they forget that the history of coup in Nigeria, for example, is not about generals, right? The first military coup in Nigeria was executed by 5 majors, not even colonels. And so let them not think that removing the generals would forestall coup in their countries without development, without happiness, without security. We have clearly failed in these 3 areas. They have already told you the clear operational definition of the reason we have government. You have government for security of lives and property. You have government for delivery of welfare to a greater majority of the citizens. Anything outside this is just jara. But they can't deliver on these basics. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Look at insecurity in Nigeria. Insecurity in Nigeria is a clear reflection of failed leadership. Where leadership fails is reflected in what you call a challenge to sovereignty. The nation Nigeria, like any other sovereign nation, is determined by its power and right to maintain its integrity.
Okay.
Do you understand that? In terms of territory, is maintained, and that's why you have the military to check external incursions and whatever will threaten the corporate existence of the country. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If these are the 2 reasons you have the military, if the military believes that a leadership has become so toxic that the people cannot even change it, don't you think that they may be telling you that if you continue the way you are going, the country will disintegrate? And they now see it as a kind of legitimate right to intervene to save the nation. I am not saying it is, but I'm telling you the kind of thoughts. So now, if you don't do all this, it's revolution that you will get. And I see military intervention as a form of revolution, depending on their goal. Because, a military intervention can be targeted at just a change of government and not necessarily to change the system. That is not revolutionary. So it remains to be seen the kind of changes that are sweeping the Francophone countries, which I believe will spread to Anglophone if we don't act fast. It's not a matter of unleashing ECOWAS on a place like Niger Republic. Look for the unseen hands. The ECOWAS should not allow the sub-region to be used as a theater of war that may ignite the Third World War. I'll tell you why. The reason is because Russia is interested. Russia is an alternate superpower. Checkmating America, Britain, France on one side. You know, China is somehow neither here nor there. But if they must take side, from the recent occurrences, they are likely to join the Russian forces. This will balance out the terror between the two divides, with West Africa as the testing ground. We don't want that.
We don't even stand a chance.
Look, they will just use you as pawns. If you know the game of chess, you know the pawns, those little officers in front, they move forward only one step at a time, and they can't go back. They can't go sideways. That is how West African countries are. We're too little in the equation, and yet we're being used. Our own president, eager to impress, is marshalling out. And do you understand that? Of course, what do you expect him to do? He is battling to legitimize his victory and government. So whatever he can do to be in the good books of these Western powers, he will do that. And that includes what he's trying to do in Niger. I'm sure that the better part of Tinubu knows that this is a wrong move. But for him, it's good for his political survival.
Yes.
But do you blame Tinubu? Is Nigeria not the only country in the world where a president whose victory is in court is sworn in?
And also made the chairman of ECOWAS.
And made the chairman of ECOWAS. ECOWAS knew that his victory was yet to be validated, and yet they made him their chairman, telling the whole Nigerian electorate to go to hell. That's what they did. That is precisely the meaning of what they did. It means that whatever is going on in the tribunal now is merely to fulfill all righteousness. It ought not to be. Because they know that if indeed Nigerian presidential election ends up in the Supreme Court, you don't regard a Nigerian president whose case is yet to be determined by the Supreme Court to act as though he is now the authentic president of Nigeria. What do you now do if, for example, the Supreme Court removes Tinubu? Supreme Court removing Tinubu means altering the entire equation. Do you see
even at ECOWAS?
So it becomes a moral burden, even on the courts and the Supreme Court. It becomes a moral burden because they'll be looking at all these things. It's not a Tinubu problem. It has been like that since 1999.
No.
That's why I told you that what you find around is what you become competitive dictatorship. The elites passing power around themselves. Otherwise, why should you swear in Obasanjo in 1999 when his case was in the tribunal? Why swear in Yaradua? Why swear in Goodluck Jonathan? Why swear in Buhari? Do you understand that? When their case, their presidential victory was being challenged up to the Supreme Court, you swore them in. Why shouldn't you swear in Tinubu? That's why I said
it always almost looks like, even after the swearing in, for some reasons, they just always won at the tribunal and they always retain the seat.
I told you that it becomes when you now when you create.
So it's more like the tribunal, their hands are tied and there's nothing else you can do.
All these things are tying the hands of the tribunal. You're making it a bigger uphill task. What a normal society does is to determine all electoral petitions and challenges before you swear in the ECOWAS. And it's not only the president, it's all of them, House of Assembly, governors, House of Reps, senators, all of them are there and their cases are in the tribunal.
Okay. I would have loved us to take some calls before we end our conversation today, because we've had lots of callers calling in on the program, but this has been like a serious issue, and I would have loved us to hear some of the opinions of the people before we continue our conversation, but then we're also running out of time. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello,
Good morning. Please turn down the volume of your TV set and go ahead and make your contributions.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Good morning. Please turn down the volume of your TV set. Yes, we can hear you.
Am I on to KAFTAN TV?
Yes, this is KAFTAN Television. Please turn down the volume of your TV set.
Oh, I've lowered it down.
Okay, please go ahead and make your
Franklin, I'm calling from Akwa Ibom.
Good morning, Mr. Franklin. How are you doing today?
I'm very fine. The man in the studio has really hit the nail on the head. I like people that say the truth anyway. He has almost even said my mind, but I have to chip in something there. To be candid with the system in this country, the system of democracy in this country, they are even playing part of what the leadership of this country are doing on the military. The military has not really helped matter. All right? And I don't know why they should allow themselves to be used by the politicians, you know, to the point of unleashing them on the public whenever a protest is conducted. So if somebody is not satisfied with the level of, you know, impunity in the country, somebody has to stand up and at least express the aggression or the anger by mere protest. But you see that when people are just trying to express their anger through protest, these criminals called leaders will unleash military.
All right,
and
thank you.
Maybe some persons may be injured in the process, and that will try to hinder persons from, you know, expressing or coming out next time to protest.
All right, thank you so much for that.
These are problems, and of course, you look at the sit-tight leaders we have in this country. You know, somebody who is passing leadership position to his son, and maybe from son to another son, and then to the grandson. I don't know. Others will be watching.
All right, thank you so much. We run out of time. Thank you so much for your contributions. Please do join us sometime next. Okay.
But no problem. But my man in the studio has said everything. Nothing I will say that is new to what he has said.
All right.
At least let the leaders be mindful of the actions and know that tomorrow is bigger than today.
All right.
Africans are becoming wiser.
Yes.
Today, democracy is brought by the white men in Africa to enslave us for post-colonialism. Because I've not really seen anything that is good coming out from this democracy.
All right, thank you so much for your contributions.
There's no, even the maintenance of those capital projects now,
I'm so sorry I had to let you go. We ran out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Law. I would have really loved us to talk about the issue that he just raised about the role the military played during NSAS protest, but we ran out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
I understand. Tomorrow is another day.
All right, with that, we draw the curtain today on the press, coming to you live from the Abuja studios of KAFTAN Television. And that was our conversation with Dr. Law Mefor. He's a media consultant. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.